Hello again, my audience. Today, we discuss political violence. The assassination of Charlie Kirk has been an unexpected and tragic development in American politics. Charlie was not a radical right-winger. He was very moderate and would spend his time in public debates, attempting to show the public just how deranged the radical left are. But what does the death of Charlie Kirk mean for the future of American politics? There are two things. What is particularly bad about the shootings is that many people in America, the UK, and Europe identify with Charlie. They knew Charlie was a moderate. He was milquetoast in most of his opinions. If the radical left is willing to use violence against Charlie, they would be willing to use it against anyone. Second, it has highlighted that radical left-wing groups are beginning to shift their rhetoric into actual violence. There is a discussion that groups such as Antifa and their affiliates be branded as terrorist organizations. I note this is not the first incidence of such political violence. There has been a string of recent left-wing related violence in the United States. The Trump shooter and Minneapolis shooters both exhibited half-baked left-wing sympathies, including anti-imperialism, anti-religion, and pro-Palestine flavor-of-the-month ideas. In the case of the Trump shooter, it is a mystery as to why he didn't target countless other imperialist American politicians that have implemented pointless foreign wars over the last 30 years. Instead, he chose one of the few people that have been against such imperialist wars. While the Trump shooter did not have a large online presence, strange for someone reported as terminally online and with few friends, both the Minneapolis and Charlie Kirk shooter identified with the trans community and were active on Discord communities associated with left-wing ideologies. You see, this is the real problem that America faces. Radical left-wing groups who talk casually of violence like children who have never experienced it have infiltrated institutions across America, from schools and universities to government and media. Vulnerable and lonely young people are being welcomed into these communities, whether in educational institutions or online at the likes of Discord, and groomed into radical political and lifestyle choices. You see, as the right has been busy getting on with their lives, the left has been making the slow march through the institutions and taking them over. At the heart of the left are two main types of people. Naive, useful idiots who believe Marxist ideals are the secret to utopia, and wannabe revolutionaries who fancy themselves the next Che Guevara. For the radical left, violence is the only answer to those they cannot persuade. This has been clear for over a decade now, with Antifa and similar radical left-wing groups practicing totalitarianism and political reprisals in a way that made National Socialists blush. The radical left has always been a receptacle for individuals walking the fine line of sanity, going all the way back to the French Revolution, with Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Marquis de Sade playing major roles. Of course, for those who don't know, Marquis de Sade dreamt of a society where he could indulge his desires to sodomize any marginalized woman or child with impunity. The recent crop of people publicly proclaiming celebration over the assassination of a political moderate is a clear indicator of how far this rot has spread. Not only do they harbor these radical ideas, they also believe they can proclaim them publicly under their own name with complete impunity. Clearly, they don't believe they will suffer any repercussions. But in a historical context, how serious is this? Could this lead to increasing political violence on both sides? The answer is yes. We have many examples to go through. Argentina, Italy, Uruguay, Germany, and Spain all experienced similar phenomena during the 20th century. Radical left-wing terror groups attempting to achieve a free-stuff utopia carried out kidnappings and attacks, terrorizing the population and providing a pretext for right-wing reprisals. The dirty war in Argentina. I watched numerous documentaries about this. Every documentary featured the evil junta and its persecution, torture, and execution of political dissidents, but barely mentioned the radical left-wing guerrilla groups that began the violence. From politicians and business leaders down to ordinary members of the middle class, some 300 kidnappings and murders occurred between 1970 and 1974. The junta did not spontaneously manifest and start persecuting individuals. The junta was initially supported by the public because the citizens of the country did not feel safe. They were under the oppression of a rabid political ideology that believed any price was acceptable in the march towards communism. The junta was enabled by the radical left, and 50 years on, this fact is still ignored. Nothing upsets the left more than the truth. This is not to say such violence is only a left-wing phenomenon. There have been numerous far-right groups such as the Aryan Nation and the Triple K. These have rightly been branded as terrorist organizations, and all members have been excluded from public life. They have no support in academia, media, or government, and they must resort to drug trafficking and other crimes to fund their activities. This shows how easily such groups can be neutralized if they are treated appropriately by authorities. Let us set down the politics for a second. I have visited countries that have been ravaged by civil war, which always starts with those who believe ideology trumps reason and compromise. Beirut, once known as the Paris of the Middle East, was ravaged by civil war for 15 years. It only took a few months for Lebanon to go from a first world to a third world country. It is still plagued with ethnic and religious conflicts to this day, and even basic utilities like electricity are unreliable. Northern Ireland, plagued with sectarian violence from the 1960s onward between the Catholic left-leaning Provisional IRA and right-wing Protestant militias, only resolved in 1998 with the Good Friday Agreement. The scars of this conflict are still visible to this day, with 10-meter-high metal fences separating Catholic and Protestant suburbs in Belfast. Consequences of tit-for-tat political violence are evident the world over. Nobody wins and everybody loses. Unlike many other conflicts, however, the grievances of the radical left in the West are imaginary. No one remembers the communist uprisings and left-wing depravity of the Weimar Republic. Everyone remembers the result, the rise of the National Socialists. Just like no one remembers the leftist violence in Argentina that provided the public support of the murderous junta. Those on the right need to be mindful that any violent reprisals against the left will only bolster their position. They would love nothing more. The right must be the faction of peace and stability, working with just and measured tactics to neutralize the radical left. There is a very clear solution to the peril America is facing. These terrorist organizations like Antifa, they do not exist to bash fascists. They exist to bash you and anyone else that questions their insane ideology. They exist because they are funded and supported by left-wing sympathetic businessmen and bureaucrats who wish to see America permanently mired in political violence so they can profit off the chaos. They have grown bold over the last decade and no longer think it prudent to hide their involvement. These people must be identified and their support severed, otherwise the violence towards and subversion of the American people will only continue. The radical left feeds off pain and suffering, and they want to bring it to a town near you.
And Jewish donors, they have a lot of explaining to do, a lot of decoupling to do, because Jewish donors have been the #1 funding mechanism of radical, open-border, neoliberal, quasi-Marxist policies, cultural institutions, and nonprofits. This is a beast created by secular Jews. And now it's coming for Jews, and they're like, what on earth happened? And it's not just the colleges. It's the nonprofits, it's the movies, it's Hollywood, it's all of it. It's like time for you guys to wake up and say no more, draw a line in the sand. I don't care if you hate me.